You're listening to Inside of You with Michael Rosenbaum. Ryan, good to have you with me as always.
Hello.
I like the mustache.
Thank you.
I can't grow one. You look like Keith Hernandez in the 80s.
It's the most it is the thickest part of the facial hair that I grow.
I can't grow one. I look just greasy. You say greasy or greasy?
Greasy. I could see you with like a handlebar mustache, though. I could see that.
Yeah, I don't think I'd be attractive.
I've seen pictures of you in college too. Wasn't there a little goatee hanging?
Yeah, it wasn't good.
Yeah.
Thank you for bringing that up.
It was great.
Thanks for listening to the podcast, guys. If you're here for Max Lugavere, and if I mispronounce his name, Max texted me and smacked me across the face. But I appreciate you stopping by and listening to our little podcast. And I ask you, if you do enjoy it, to try a few other episodes, see how you like it. I think you'll enjoy it. What are our handles, Ryan?
At Inside of You Pod on Twitter.
Yes.
Inside of You Podcast on Instagram and Facebook.
That's correct. And if you want to go to my Instagram at @TheMichaelRosenbaum, you go to the link tree and you get cameos. You can see what cons Tom Welly and I are going to and doing Smallville Nights. We're doing a Smallville con in October in New Jersey. We're going to Phoenix. I'm going to Mad Monster in July. Also, the Inside of You online store has Lex Miscript signed, ship keys, tumblers, awesome stuff. The band, Sunspin, you could get merch and follow us at Sunspin Band. I'd appreciate it. And we do a lot of live virtual shows, so you can just check on sunspin.com or on Linktree. And my new product, Rosie's Puppy Fresh Breath for your dogs, just a cap full in your dog's water, odorless, tasteless, and it works. I just bought it. I bought my own product because I couldn't do it for the distributor. It probably would have been more expensive. So I bought my own product, Ryan. Rosie's Puppy Fresh Breath on Amazon. I did, I swear to God. Gave it to the dogs this morning. And then I kissed them. Yes. A lot of good stuff going on. I hope you guys are taking care of yourself. I've been going to therapy. It's been working. Ryan, going to therapy, keeping up with your mental health.
I am, yeah.
It's important. My mom's finally in therapy. A therapist said she thinks she's really depressed. And so my mom was a little taken aback. And I'm like, it runs in the family. Go see someone. Talk to someone. You'll feel better. So she's doing that. And I was just in my grandmother's 96th birthday. I was in Florida. And it was just beautiful to be around her and sit on the beach with her alone and just talk. And, the memory's not there, but it's still such a joy just to be in her presence. It's like, I'm 51 years old. She's been in my life my entire life. My entire life I've had my grandmother, and I'm very lucky. So I love you, Blanche Blanco. I named my dog after you. I know that that seems weird, but you're an amazing woman, and I really appreciate you. Also, please join patreon.com/inside-of-you to support the podcast. Could not do this without you. If you're liking the podcast, you want to give back, please go to patreon.com/inside-of-you. And why don't we just do this? Why don't we get inside? This is a really interesting interview. Max Lugavere, he did this documentary, documented his mother going through dementia, and it's heartbreaking, but it's inspirational, and it's just, you learn a lot. I learned a lot, and he was very brave for doing this, and the story is pretty remarkable. I think you're going to really enjoy this. Thanks for coming on, Max. Let's get inside of Max Lugavere.
It's my point of view. You're listening to Inside of You with Michael Rosenbaum. Inside of You with Michael Rosenbaum was not recorded in front of a live studio audience.
The reason I have you on the podcast because our mutual friend Kristen Ritter was just talked so highly of you. And she was like, you have to have Max on the podcast. And I said, who's Max? But I don't know a lot of people. Like, people will say names and they're like, how do you not know this person? And then I look, of course, you have over 1 million followers. So you have more followers than I do. So more people know you than they know me.
I wouldn't say that. I feel like I hit a very specific niche,
Was it inadvertent?
Yeah, I mean, I never would have anticipated that I'd be doing what it is that I'm doing, particularly at the scale that I'm doing it. But I'm very grateful because, I feel like all of my passions, my interests, my skills are aligned. And at the end of the day, I feel strongly that I'm impacting people, that I'm reducing to some degree suffering in the world, which is, like, what's better than that?
But you never anticipated like, if you rewind to a younger Max, the younger days, was it like, it's like, oh, I want to do something, work with health and nutrition and do all these things and write a book, Genius Foods, New York Times bestseller, and have a podcast and The Genius Life, right? And do a documentary, Little Empty Boxes. And I mean, did you ever think, like, when you were in high school, or even, did you go to college?
I went to college. Yeah. I went to University of Miami.
University of Miami. I mean, what were you thinking you were going to do?
Yeah. I mean, for me, it was, I always felt like a square peg trying to fit myself into a round hole, particularly in the context of, like, academia, traditional Western schooling. My grades were never that great in high school and in college. And I've always had a lot of different interests. It was really difficult for me actually to boil the essence of who I felt I was down to one particular thing and then focus on that thing in academia. And I think I've always also had, to some degree, subclinical ADD. Like I've always really thrived on novelty and, like, getting me to sit still.
You're talking to Mr. ADHD.
Yeah.
You could ask anybody who ever has known me, every therapist I've talked to. And it was hard for me to sort of just focus and figure out acting was sort of like, you got all those things where it was like you get attention, and I didn't get that as a kid. So this is great.
Yeah.
And, I felt like, oh, wow, people are paying attention to you. They think you're good at something. I kind of stumbled on that, and I just kept going with it. And I didn't even really know how much I enjoyed it, but I knew that I guess I was getting good at it, and people liked me doing that. So, but anyway.
I can totally relate. Yeah, I mean, I didn't get, growing up, I was an introvert. I gravitated more to computers and the internet, like the nascent internet at the time. And
the nascent?
Nascent, like the
nascent.
The burgeoning internet.
Is that what the word means?
Yeah.
See, I went to Western Kentucky University. Nascent wasn't a word we used.
No, definitely an SAT word. But and I did do fairly well on my SATs, if I recall correctly.
I'm guessing like a 1380.
It was around there.
That's
somewhere.
Pretty good. I didn't get that.
But my grades were not good. My GPA was never great. And so I started college with the intention of going into medicine, but I actually, and you'll appreciate this, I sat in on at University of Miami, an introductory to filmmaking course.
Nice.
Yeah. And I just was seduced by Hollywood and storytelling. And I ended up switching out of the pre-med track to a double major in film and psychology.
Wow.
Yeah. And so now, full circle, 20 something years later, I'm releasing my first film, this documentary, Little Empty Boxes. But yeah, I've always had this passion for health and nutrition and wellness, and it was primarily something that I was interested in for vanity reasons because
Me too.
Yeah. And when my mom became sick, so the documentary is about the journey of my mom,
Kathy,
who was at a very young age diagnosed with a rare form of dementia called Lewy body dementia, which is actually what Robin Williams had. And it's a really difficult disease. And when my mom, at the onset of her symptoms, when my mom was first diagnosed, that's when my interest in science and biology and health came full circle. But instead of being about me, it was about the person who I loved most in the world. How could this have happened to somebody at such a young age? Somebody who was, by and large, a person who anybody would have described as a health conscious person. And nonetheless, she, at the age of 58 was succumbing to this awful condition. And, I figured that there had to have been something in her diet, lifestyle, environment that triggered it. And I'll never know for sure what triggered it, of course, but that's really what ignited this investigation that'll continue to the rest of my life.
So if your mom wasn't diagnosed with this dementia,
yeah,
and she was healthy and lived on and had no problems, what road do you think you would have taken?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I got really lucky. So out of college, I got this incredible job working for Al Gore. So
wow,
yeah,
was he a nice guy?
He was a nice guy. Yeah. And I don't know if you remember this, but there was a TV network in the US called Current TV.
Yep.
Okay. So I was one of the main faces of Current TV. I was one of the main on-air journalists, presenters for that network. Yeah. I got that job just like upon graduation. So dream gig. And that kind of launched this career where I moved out to LA. I was, on TV from one day to the next.
You were making money?
Not really. They paid me like a $30,000 a year salary, but it was incredible. I would have done it for free.
Yeah, you loved it.
I loved it. Yeah. And so I was somebody who was like just out of college. I would roll out of bed like in a t-shirt onto set, and I got to talk about really cool shit every single day to a
dream job.
So I was like a journalist, but I was a journalist, with like bedhead and a t-shirt and, and I was like not making a lot of money. I had this like really prestigious job. I wasn't famous. I mean, I was famous to like the
niche
dozen or so people that watched current TV,
right?
But like, but yeah, it was really a job that I felt was ultimately about making the world a better place, and I loved that. I got to use my creative muscles. I got to learn about storytelling, about journalism, for this job, which was to me so like highbrow. But yeah, and then that ended, and I went through a bit of a lull where I actually didn't know what I was going to do next. I felt kind of like, because I suddenly found myself in Hollywood without a job, and
there's nothing more depressing than that.
Yeah, and where do you go from like that current TV gig, right? Where you're like at the end of the day, every day you're creating content that's like really that you feel is very important. And
right.
Then suddenly I found myself going up for like hosting jobs to like host these like music shows, which of course I was never going to get because the same jobs that I was going up for, Nick Cannon and all these other guys were going up for as well.
Right.
And so it left me in a place where I was, at times regretting my decision to not go into medicine, because I was like, I had deferred adulthood essentially because I had this amazing job for 6 years and then I was like unemployed. And so that was a really dark and depressing time professionally for me. And then in my personal life, it was like fuel on the fire when my mom got sick.
What was the first sign that you noticed something was wrong? Because people forget things. People, I'll think I have Alzheimer's every day, but also my grandfather died of it. My grandmother died of it. So that does sort of resonate. But I think, I remember my grandfather, there were certain things when I saw him, the first time when I noticed, I went up to the mountains and he never got upset. And he came out of his room and he's like, "Where's the key? Where's the key to the pool area?" Because it was like a bungalow colony, and everybody had a key, and they're like, "This key needs to be on the hook. It needs to be on the hook. Why is it?" And like, all of us were like, "Irv, it's okay. We have the key. We have the key." And then he caught himself. It was something so small, and he just was confused. And then he went back, and that was the first time I noticed something was off. And then he slowly started repeating himself and doing things. But what were signs that you started to go, "Fuck, something's not right"?
Yeah, I mean, the thing about dementia is that once you've seen one case of dementia, you've seen one case of dementia. They're all a little bit different. And my mom's condition in particular was never really typical in the sense that, I would read all these anecdotes online of people with loved ones with Alzheimer's disease, with other forms of dementia, and it was never perfectly relatable. So I felt very isolated, actually. For my mom, she began complaining of brain fog, which at first I thought was just par for the course of getting older. I thought that was just like, my mom's now.
We all get it.
We all get it, And I had not had any, my maternal grandmother, so my mom's mom, was in her 90s at the time and cognitively healthy. So the idea that my mom could have had this quote unquote old person's disease when her mom was totally cognitively normal was just like, that wasn't even on my radar.
Right.
But she continued to complain about it when I would call her from LA. And ultimately it wasn't until we had taken a family trip to Miami.
2011?
Yeah, it was like around 2011, where my mom, we were all in my dad's living room. So my parents had been divorced, but they were still amicable. And we took a family trip where me and my brothers and my mom went down to visit my dad. And we were all standing in my dad's, we were in his living room, but open floor plan. My mom was in the kitchen and she was like talking to the family, and she finally confessed that she had sought the help of a neurologist. And that was pretty odd, to seek the help from a neurologist in and of itself.
And she wasn't someone who complained or went and saw doctors all the time. And
no. Yeah.
So that was a little bit like, whoa, you took a step like that. Something's right.
Yeah. Although, I think like I grew up in a family of all boys. So it was me, my dad, my 2 younger brothers. And like, there's a lot of, when you grow up in a family of all boys, like women have other health needs, as compared to men. So, their menopause, right? For example, particularly at that age. So there is a big sort of, it can be a bit mysterious, like watching a parent, but like your mother, for example, when you're not of that gender, like, I don't know. It's just my own ignorance,
It is. It's an ignorance, and it's sort of just like I think I do that too with my mom. I'm like, oh, you're fine. Stop. You're always like this. You're always worrying about this and that. You forget. Everybody forgets everything. You just kind of ignore it because you just don't think that you think it's something else. Yeah.
And also, and I think that's reflected in medicine at large. I mean, 1 in 4 women over the age of 40 are now on some kind of antidepressant drug, and there's like been this long stereotype of the hysterical woman, and there's like these deeper issues in science and nutrition, like usually all the studies are involve men as the primary subject. Like women tend to be ignored, and certainly I was in the dark about women's health, and that's actually one of the reasons why on my podcast we do focus a lot on women's health issues, because I think it's an important topic. But I digress. So anyway, my mom confessed at that point that she, her brain fog was serious to the point that she had sought the help of a neurologist. And me and my brothers were, we essentially thought my mom was trolling us. And so we started to ask her these pointed questions like, well, if you're having such difficulty, like we were testing her, what month is it? And she couldn't recall the month. She couldn't tell us what month it was.
Wow.
Which is,
did you think she was like, come on, Mom, are you serious?
Yeah. No, we thought she was messing with us.
Yeah.
But then she broke down and she started to cry. And that's when I knew that things were really serious, and, or at least more serious than I had thought previously.
Wow. And
it took a couple of months, but ultimately I ended up wrapping up my life in LA. I moved back to New York, and I started going with her to doctor's appointments. And that's when I saw that things were really a lot more serious than I had previously thought.
When was your first, because I think you go, tell me if I'm wrong, but I guess you go into sort of a denial, or when there's an emergency or when something happens, you step up and you start, but at some point there has to be something that clicks where you break down a little bit. It does hit you. It does affect you, where you're not in fight or flight and you're not trying to, okay, I got to save her. I got to take her to the appointments. I got to make her happy. But and I felt like with my grandfather through his 5+ years of Alzheimer's, that I was mourning him. It was almost every time I saw him. It was slowly, I was in my own way mourning him. So by the time he ended up passing away, I was, not to say okay with it, but I was more accepting. And I was like, why am I not hysterical? He's my best friend. He's my dad. What am I, and then, my therapist was telling me, it's like, you've been mourning. You've been in mourning through all these years. So, I know that was a lot to throw at you.
No, it's
but when did you break down? I mean, was there a breakdown moment, or?
Yeah, this is again what has inspired and continues to inspire so much of my work, is that, I grew up in New York City, and in New York, we're very privileged. We have access to cathedrals, to modern medical insight, right? I mean, my mom lived across the street from NYU Langone, which is like one of the top medical centers in New York. And going with her from doctor's appointment to doctor's appointment, I experienced what I've come to call diagnose and adios, essentially. I mean, today if you get 15 minutes with a primary care physician, like, you're lucky.
Their light turns on, it's time for the next patient.
Exactly. And I get it. I mean, doctors are human, and they're under the constraints of the, of the insurance system, and they've just, it's a business for them as well, obviously. But from the standpoint of like patient care, that can be incredibly frustrating. And because my mom's symptoms were atypical, we ultimately had to book a trip to the Cleveland Clinic in Ohio. And so I just imagine the desperation that you would feel like living in New York City, where you have access to, I mean, at arm's reach, you know.
So they weren't
Columbia.
doing enough, you felt, so you had to go to Cleveland.
We didn't even have a diagnosis. Like my mom's physicians thought that these were all just a manifestation of depression. So there's actually something called pseudo dementia, where, you know, if you're sometimes people who are clinically depressed will actually exhibit symptoms that might look like dementia, but once you tend to the depression, those symptoms clear up. So in my mom's case, and this is why that whole thing about 1 in 4 women over 40 being, you know, on an antidepressant drug is like actually really shocking and really kind of upsetting. They thought that my mom's symptoms were ultimately just her being, you know, just a symptoms of depression.
Right.
And so, but we knew that there was something deeper at play. And so, unsatisfied with that idea that it was just depression, we ended up booking a trip to the Cleveland Clinic, which is known for taking on these really complex medical cases. You know, you present, they build a team around the patient, typically is what we understood at the time. And we ended up, you know, booking a trip out there. And it was there that for the first time she was diagnosed with a neurodegenerative condition. So she was prescribed in that trip for the first time drugs for both Alzheimer's disease and Parkinson's disease. And so I didn't know anything about either condition. Googling those drugs later on that night in the Holiday Inn that we were staying at, for the first time in my life, I had a panic attack. And that was the moment really for me that like everything, it was sort of like the record stopping at the rave. Like for me, everything changed, you know, like my career, things that I've been passionate about, even relationships, like everything kind of, you know, from one minute to the next was put on the back burner. And I just became obsessed with trying to understand everything I possibly could about.
You know, it's crazy. I was watching the documentary and I love it. I truly loved it. It's heartbreaking, it's educational, and it really, it's like almost sometimes the camera shots stay with your mom or you for extra beats. It's not quick cutting. It's like really getting inside of what's going on with your mom, with Kathy, with you. And it was sometimes difficult to watch, but it gave me an understanding of, you know, wow, this is, if anything, this is what it helps you understand what to expect, and everything, every case is different, but I applaud you for that. I thought it was really amazing. And one of the parts of the documentary is you're talking with your publicist early on, and she's like, well, what are you going to do? Because your career is kind of starting to take off and you got a lot of things going on. And you just made a decision to stop everything and take care of your mom, right? How difficult was that decision to make? Because at this point, you could have, is the right word, delegated or whatever to like your brother or someone else, and you're like, I'm going to take the reins. I'm going to do this. And I have to put everything on the side right now, even though things are starting to happen for me. I've decided to do this.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm glad that scene resonated, because I mean, that was an important part of the journey for me. I mean, I was in my late 20s. So, I mean, that's like a pivotal point in your life, you know, particularly as you're trying to, you know, make sense of this career that essentially I was given, you know, post-college. And I had all these opportunities, but, you know, I wasn't fully satisfied with the opportunities that were coming my way. But nonetheless, I was in LA and I felt really proud that I had built this life for myself, and all my best friends were in LA and I had a relationship in LA. And, but ultimately I did have to put it all kind of on pause to go back to New York. I couldn't just delegate to my brothers because, you know, I'm the firstborn in my family. And so I had always had this incredibly close relationship with my mom. And for anybody with siblings, you know, anybody will recognize that, like, within the family unit, everybody has kind of like a different role, you know. Like, I'm the creative person. I've always had a passion for health. It's just something that I've always really loved. And I was an investigator of sorts, having been a journalist, so I knew how to ask questions.
Yeah.
My little brothers, you know, they had more traditional jobs and they were, you know, working these 9-to-5s in New York. They're younger than me, so they were at you know, they were really busy and also they didn't necessarily have the skill set or the wherewithal to deal with this problem the way that I knew that it needed to be dealt with.
And you stayed with her.
I moved back to New York and I stayed with her.
You stayed in her house?
Yeah, at the beginning. Yeah. Well, I was also unemployed. And so it was a way for me to both be as close as possible to my mom and for me to cut costs enough so that I could really focus on what was going on with her without the constraints of having to worry about like paying my rent or like any of that other stuff, you know?
Yeah.
Because I mentioned like it was this weird juxtaposition. Like I had all this press. I was on TV. I did this thing that like I had a ton of respect for within the industry and you know, and outside of the industry, you know, I was like riding high on this like really cool wave of having come off this like Al Gore project and whatever. But as much buzz and notoriety as I had achieved through this job, it didn't leave me wealthy because I was like underpaid and I wasn't famous enough for it to have, you know, parlayed into some like next step, you know, in any like logical way, you know. I had to like, I recognized that I had to really like start to figure out like what it was that I wanted to do next. And that was a really frustrating time.
Yeah.
You know, because I was like given this like incredible Hollywood opportunity and it was certainly fun and I certainly enjoyed it, but there was like nothing else like it, you know. Like and also like ultimately YouTube kind of eclipsed what we were trying to do at Current TV, which was ultimately to empower citizen journalists and to help people tell important stories that weren't being told. And YouTube eclipsed what the network sought to do. But yeah, within like there was nothing else in Hollywood to, you know, that I felt like was going to like scratch that itch.
Right.
That was going to allow me to continue to tell important stories, do it in a way that was cool and entertaining, but also like mission driven. And so I felt, you know, fairly hopeless. And there was a bit of, I guess, resignation. I had to ultimately resign from that and just go all in on trying to understand what was going on with my mom.
This show is sponsored by Betterhelp. Betterhelp has been with us for a long time, and there's a reason, because people are using it, and it's helping so many people. Now, does social media make it seem like everyone else is living the fabulous, amazing life while yours is not that? Comparison is the thief of joy, and it's easy to envy other people's lives. It might look like they have it all together, but in reality, they probably don't. Therapy from BetterHelp can help you focus on what you want instead of what others have, so you can start living your best life. Therapy is helpful for learning positive coping skills and how to set boundaries. It empowers you to be the best version of yourself, and it isn't just for those who've experienced major trauma. Therapy from BetterHelp can help every single one of us.
If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists at any time for no additional charge.
Stop comparing and start focusing with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/inside today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/inside. Yeah, did you I think about this because in the documentary, it's really about her. And then there's moments where you see like how it affects you, which is so important. But we don't get to see those moments that the camera's not on you, or you're thinking in your bed, or you're just overwhelmed, that overwhelming feeling of taking care of someone and seeing them deteriorate and not being able to do anything about it. And did you catch yourself were you ever short with her, or ever just anxious?
Totally.
Or just like almost like, and you didn't mean to, and then you feel guilty and it's just so frustrating.
Did you pick up on that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I did pick up on that, but you were stoic and you were so reserved. See, if you would have filmed me, it'd have been like, fuck, come on.
Yeah.
Fuck. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm kind of like, I have a different relationship with my mother though. So it would have been a different relationship. And I and she has my stepdad who lives there, and they would have had to treat me. Because I couldn't have handled it. I don't think I really commend you for putting a pause on life, taking care of your mother, and because I honestly don't think I could do that. I mean, I would do everything I could to help her, but to move in with my mother, I just don't think I have it in me.
Yeah, no, it's
to be honest.
No, I get it. Well, I don't, looking back, like it doesn't feel like I was doing anything particularly heroic. I just, she was the most important person in my life, and I loved her dearly. And, but there are moments in the film that are hard for me to watch because I do detect in my own voice an impatience and a frustration. And I think we decided to leave those scenes in, even though they're hard for me to watch. You know? I wish I could go back in time and be like, Max, chill the fuck out. This isn't a test run. She's not trolling you. This is not a joke.
Right.
But ultimately, I mean, that is the experience of the caregiver. It can be incredibly frustrating. You do end up feeling incredibly alienated because it's such a hard pill to swallow. I mean, there's like an incredulousness to, the person who you love most in the world. And particularly, my mom she was an entrepreneur. My mom ran a business with my dad, and she raised 3 boys and was always like she was a New Yorker, she was a fast walking, fast talking.
I loved her. I didn't know your mother, but in this 1.5-hour documentary, I loved her. I loved her. She was just, I think what you see is what you get with her. And she would tell you how she felt. I'm scared. I don't want, when she says, I don't want to die. And why is this happening? And it's heartbreaking, and it's so real and so raw. And it's just like, I don't know. It did blow me away. But what I do want to ask you is, you went on to write a New York Times bestselling book, Genius Foods. And in the documentary, you start introducing your mother to certain foods that explain that, like certain, while you're living with her, you're researching all this stuff, right? Like maybe this will help. Maybe it's blueberries. Maybe it's this. And the outcome overall was not good. She ended up passing away. There was nothing you could do to save her. But do you think that the diet and the things that you were incorporating into her life did give her more years or more time?
I do think so. I mean, that's an anecdote, so take it with a grain of salt. But one of the things there were a few things that I discovered really early on that were aside from just trying to memorialize and pay tribute to what it was that, my mom was going through, somebody who, and utilizing my skills as a filmmaker, not a medical doctor, not an academic scientist, right? That really stood as the call to action for me to do what I could to get this sort of, these insights, this topic out to a larger audience. And one is that, particularly at the time in which I decided to undertake this project, like most people were unaware that diet could affect the brain in any capacity.
And there's still critics,
of course,
that will sit here and say, oh, well, you're not a scientist. You don't know, and that's why you say take it with a grain of salt, but it's your belief. And you wrote a book, Dr. Oz, agrees with you. A lot of people agree with you. There's always online. You can go anywhere and say, oh, I should be eating this. Oh, I shouldn't be eating this. Oh, I should do this. I shouldn't. I don't know what the fuck to do anymore because there's so many opinions on it.
Yeah.
So
yeah, no, I mean, I'm now, fully immersed in the nutrition world, and there is a lot of controversy and polarity, as there is with pretty much every topic today. So you have to be kind of, you have to approach anything today knowing that, there are always going to be counter voices and counter opinions to essentially whatever it is that you say, right? I mean, there are people that hate pizza. There are people that hate Disney World. You know what I'm saying? So
how dare them?
How dare they?
I fucking love Disney World.
Yeah. And so, I wasn't like a huge Oppenheimer fan, but like obviously that was an incredible movie,
right?
So it's
I thought it was a really good movie. I didn't think it was mind bending.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, a lot of talking.
Yeah, a lot of talking.
I want to see more explosions.
It was like watching a play.
Yeah, yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
I agree. We can get into that.
No,
but, yeah.
but I mean, no hate. Like, obviously, it's a magnificent work, and it's like objectively there are things that are incredible about the film. But everybody's gonna have an opinion today.
Agreed,
and that's fine. That's great. But part of what I think is my mission to do is to help people be able to separate fact from fiction. with regard to nutrition, because we're fed a lot of different truths and mistruths and half-truths about what it means to eat healthily today. And I think that my mom was in many ways victim to a lot of that misinformation, particularly because she didn't have access to the internet. So everything that she believed to be true about healthy eating, a healthy lifestyle, she gleaned essentially from, magazines and mainstream media and things like that. So yeah, I do, we do have agency when it comes to our brain health, and diet is one part of the puzzle. There's also, myriad lifestyle factors. Exercise, sleep, stress mitigation, all that stuff. Most people think of dementia as being a genetic condition or something that's like predetermined by your genes, and that's not true for the vast majority of cases. Only about 1% to 2% of Alzheimer's cases, for example, are attributable to a deterministic gene. The vast majority are sporadic, meaning they're influenced to some degree by the environment. Many people consider it an old person's condition, a natural aspect of aging. Those are all myths.
Yes.
And so, I think one of the things that I achieved with my mom was getting her on an exercise program. And we know that exercise.
I saw that in a documentary, and it was wonderful, and I could see how much she enjoyed it. And it was really nice to see that.
Yeah, exercise is medicine when it comes to the brain. It's that we almost have like a prescriptive level of evidence now. So if you care about your brain and you're not exercising, there's a bit of cognitive dissonance there. And we know now that exercise is crucial. It promotes growth factors in the brain that support the survival of your neurons. It promotes the growth of new neurons, brain cells. Right. Lifts your mood. It's incredible for hormonal health, for, promoting insulin sensitivity, keeping your blood sugar balanced and stable, and reducing high blood pressure. So I did get her on an exercise program, and I think that might have to some degree slowed the progression of her illness. We also, we addressed diet in the film because diet is important.
Yeah, what was it that you were giving her? That one thing, what was it called? Kimchi,
yeah. Kimchi's amazing.
Do you still use kimchi?
I use it all the. Yeah, I eat fermented foods all the time. Fermented foods are incredible for you. Kimchi is one example of a fermented food. It's a Korean dish. It's rich in probiotics. There are some studies that show that fermented foods are great for reducing inflammation in the body, for supporting diversity of the gut microbiome, which we're starting to see plays a role in systemic health, brain health included.
And it's good.
It tastes good. It tastes great. Yeah.
I could see your mom liked it.
Yeah.
You liked it.
Yeah. I love it. It's spicy. It's tasty. My mom.
Do you ever have kimchi, Ryan? Okay. He nodded.
It's good stuff. Yeah. It could be spicy, it's not for everybody, but it's definitely good for you.
Are blueberries really good for you?
Blueberries, there is some evidence that blueberries are a brain food. Yeah, the anthocyanins, so the blue pigments in blueberries, we have seen actually accumulates in the memory center of the brain, where they can help to reduce oxidative stress. Some studies show that people who regularly eat blueberries, like a serving or two a week, have brains that are about 2 to 2.5 years younger.
What about, they say, a cup of blueberries a day?
Yeah, I don't think you need to eat a cup a day. Blueberries are also expensive, so they're cost prohibitive to many people, but they are very good for you. They're a low sugar fruit. And those anthocyanins, those blue pigments in general. So this is another, I think, one of the mechanisms underlying that adage to eat the rainbow. Plant pigments are really good for the brain. So carotenoids like lutein and zeaxanthin, we know that these are really beneficial to eye health, so they can help prevent age-related macular degeneration. But we are now starting to understand that the eyes are not just an extension of the brain. Your eyes are part of the brain, and these same compounds actually accumulate in the brain, where they seem to promote cognitive health. So dark leafy greens, great example of a potent source of these carotenoid compounds.
And you talk about all this in Genius Foods, your book.
Yeah, I talk about all this in Genius Foods. Is like a nutritional care manual to the brain. And the documentary is like the origin story. So I didn't know anything about anything. Film that really documents, I think, in many ways, the, initiating this investigation that culminates in, a book that I wrote that came out in 2018 called Genius Foods, which has like everything you need to know about how to eat for optimal brain health.
Right. I think people get overwhelmed when there's like, oh, there's this and there's this, and you should eat this, and you should take magnesium, and you should take this, and you this, and then it's like it's too much. Can't you just give me a regimen of something simpler? Like, what should I have every day in my diet? Like, is it okay to eat eggs? I like eggs.
Yeah, eggs are great.
I love hard-boiled eggs and some fruit for lunch.
Perfect.
I love a steak and some. Is rice good for you?
Yeah. Well, rice is not the most nutrient-dense food, so there's no, grains are optional. There's no such thing as an essential carbohydrate, but if you're exercising regularly, like you obviously need to consume energy. Like our brains and bodies need energy, and glucose is the preferred fuel source of the brain. And rice can be beneficial as a means of, supporting your exercise. For example, we know that carbohydrates, glucose, important for healthy thyroid function, for hormone production, and things like that. So I wouldn't call rice an essential food, but steak is great. Steak is great. I'm actually, I think one of the more controversial viewpoints that I have is that I'm a big advocate of omnivory, and I think that consuming grass-fed red meat, I think red meat is a health food.
Now, my friend Shira will get very upset because she's a vegan, and I know you say that veganism is, you have your theories on that, and explain to me like how you feel about that.
Yeah. So, a well-planned plant-based diet is obviously going to be way better than the standard American diet, which is now comprised of upwards of 60% ultra-processed foods. So my high-level take-home for anybody listening is you want to reduce your consumption of ultra-processed foods.
Get rid of them.
Yeah, get rid of them altogether. Or, that might be improbable today in today's, standard food environment, which now 73% of items at your average supermarket are ultra-processed. So, and it's fine to indulge every now and then and have what I call fun foods. Right. Like you don't have to be perfect. No single food is going to sway your health in any direction, away from,
unless you eat it every day.
Unless you're eating it every.
And by the way,
day.
when you go to the deli in a supermarket and you say I'd like a half a pound of chicken breast, that's processed, right?
Well, there's a distinction that people need to know between processed foods and ultra processed foods. So yeah, when you slice chicken, you're processing it to some degree. When you blend up blueberries in a smoothie, you're processing those blueberries. But it's not that's not what we need to worry about. It's the it's the foods that you couldn't possibly make in your own kitchen if you tried. Those are the ultra processed foods.
Like bologna. That's or a hot dog.
Yeah, you want to avoid those. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, you want to avoid the ultra processed foods to the best of your ability.
But steak, you were talking about vegans. You're talking about vegans, the plant-based, right?
Yeah. So, I think that a strictly plant-based diet is essentially depriving the brain of nutrients that we know are important. And, we don't have all the data here, but we do know that the human brain evolved in many ways with access to the nutrients that are found in animal source foods. We know that red meat is a rich source of, for example, a compound called creatine, which supports brain health and brain function. You can easily supplement with creatine, but I don't know how many, vegans and vegetarians are actively doing that. And there's a whole swath of nutrients that might not necessarily be essential that are found in animal source foods, but that might be conditionally essential. For example, glycine is a conditionally essential amino acid that's found in collagenous tissue. And animal source foods are, by and large, the most high quality sources of protein available. And when you consume more protein, you're supporting your musculature, which becomes incredibly important as you get older. Fighting off frailty is I think should be mission critical for aging well today, particularly in the Western world. Consuming high quality, especially if you undereat protein, as many older adults do, protein quality becomes crucially important. Now, if you're consuming enough protein quality doesn't seem to matter so much, but that's going to entail utilizing protein supplements as a person on a plant-based diet. You've got to use protein supplements.
Can you eat a steak a day if you wanted?
I eat red meat every single day.
Every day?
Yeah.
And is this a certain type? Is it grass-fed?
I try to go for grass-fed, but
Where can you get grass-fed meat? You go to like Whole Foods?
Yeah, you can get it. I mean, yeah, but obviously we live in Los Angeles, so we're very privileged, right? I think that if you don't have access to grass-fed, then just reach for leaner cuts. Leaner cuts, because what a cow eats influences primarily
what a pro wants, what a cow eats. Sorry, that commercial just pisses me off. I don't understand it.
Wait, what is that? What's that?
You haven't seen that commercial where those two guys?
Those two guys from the Oklahoma City Thunder.
And they're rapping there. What a pro wants. Don't get me started. But so leaner meat, like what kind of steak?
I mean, tenderloin, top sirloin.
Not New York steak.
New York is a lean
It's
cut.
lean?
Yeah.
All
Because
right.
what a cow eats influences primarily what's in its fat, right? So a cow that is grain finished, which is the standard, conventionally produced beef in this country, is going to have a higher proportion of saturated fat. Within its saturated fat, it's going to have a lower proportion of stearic acid, which is actually neutral from a cardiovascular standpoint. It's going to have a lot more omega-6 fatty acids, linoleic acid, for example. It also, people don't realize this, but the fat of a grass-fed, grass-finished cow actually is a significant source of phytochemicals. So these are plant chemicals that a cow ingests that accumulates in its fat tissue, which also has benefit, like carotenoids, like these plant pigments that we know, again, are beneficial from the standpoint of brain health. You see higher levels in grass-fed, grass-finished cows and a lower concentration in grass-fed. Most cows they start their lives on grass and then they're grain finished to fatten them up. And that's where you start to see problems. And also we evolved on eating red meat that was a lot leaner. Like a cow is a man-made creation and it's a lot fattier than wild game. And a conventionally produced cow is a lot fattier than its grass-fed counterparts. So I do think that there's an argument to be made for leaner meat. And that's what the evidence also backs up as well. Like lean red meat seems to be.
What do you eat every day? Like what does Max have for breakfast? Do you fast?
Not really.
Do you agree with that? Like I try not to eat till 2:00 in the afternoon.
I don't agree with that. I used to. This is an area where I've changed my thinking as new data has come out. I think it's actually important.
Mark Wahlberg's doing it.
Yeah. Well, he's pretty jacked.
He's jacked.
He's pretty jacked. But no, I think breaking your overnight fast with a good high quality source of protein soon after you wake up, at a half an hour to an hour after you wake up.
So hard-boiled eggs.
Yeah, I think that's great.
Every day, if you just have a couple hard-boiled eggs to get going.
Yeah. Well, there's no downside to consuming dietary cholesterol from a cardiovascular standpoint. Most people, dietary cholesterol is actually not that bioavailable. Unless you're a hyperabsorber of cholesterol, which is a minority of people. But generally, there's very little impact with regard to blood cholesterol as a result of consuming cholesterol from eggs. And eggs are even whole eggs, they're low. They don't have a lot of saturated fat or anything like that. So they're great. They're fantastic. And I think from a muscle maintenance standpoint, yeah, you do want to consume protein soon after waking up. There's this growing field of science called circadian biology, which looks at how certain processes in our body are sort of oriented to what time of day it is. And we're generally meant to eat during the day and not too late at night. So I'll eat, my first meal half an hour to an hour after waking up. And then I'll try to not eat for 2 to 3 hours before bed. And that's
so you'll just eat in the morning and then you'll wait?
Yeah, I try not to eat too close to bedtime.
No, but you'll have lunch. Will you have lunch and then dinner?
Of course, yeah. I'm eating, generally every 3 to 4 hours, I'm trying to ingest some high quality source of protein because you want to. So getting into protein is really important. It supports muscle protein synthesis. We're getting the nutrition weeds here, but generally you want to consume about 1.6 times your weight in kilograms every single day in protein. And
so I weigh 175, 180.
Yeah. So doing the math, you want to probably ingest around 130 grams of protein.
And what does a steak usually have? A lean steak? How many?
40, 45 grams, if not more.
That's a lot of protein to eat in the day, though. But if you ate 3 or 4 eggs, a steak, and a breast of chicken, you should be all right.
Yeah. 30 to 40 grams of protein every meal, 4 times a day. That's generally optimal. That's what the research says is the RDA for protein is 0.8 grams per kilogram of body weight. And we know that that's sufficient to avert protein deficiency, but it's not optimal from the standpoint of metabolic health and muscle maintenance and supporting muscle growth ultimately, which becomes increasingly difficult as you get older. So what the evidence suggests is you want to get about 1.6 grams per kilogram of your quote unquote ideal weight, or put in terms of pounds, about 0.72 times so take your weight. If you're overweight, you can use your ideal weight, which is a rough estimate of your lean mass. And you want to multiply that by 0.72. And that's generally how much protein in grams you want to get on a daily basis. And you could divide that up between 3 or 4 meals, however many meals you enjoy.
But you should
consuming.
Eat 2 or 3 hours before bed. And look, the one snack that I cannot stop eating is popcorn. I pop it myself, olive oil, no butter. But I do it like 4 times a week.
That's okay. Popcorn's fine. It's actually a very.
I thought corn is not good for you.
No, it's fine. It's a first of all, it's a whole grain, so it actually is. Even the most orthodox in the nutrition world, will say that popcorn is actually okay, provided you're not adding a bunch of other like additives to it. But I think most importantly, it's a very high volume food, so you could eat a lot of it. It's fairly satiating, and it doesn't have much of a caloric contribution. I mean, you could eat like literally 4 cups of popcorn. It's like 110 calories or something like that. There's fiber in it. It's fine. It's fine. I'm not going to say it's essential or that it's a health food, but it's totally okay.
Wow. He just said I could eat popcorn as much as I want. Well,
and olive oil is great if you're putting olive oil.
I do.
And
my friends say, they say, I forgot what it is, but olive oil it gets at the highest heat. Isn't it like the most, what's the word?
Smoke point.
Yeah. Smoke point.
Yeah.
Is it kind of dangerous when you're using it?
It's not dangerous. So some of the benefits are negated when you heat it to high temperatures. But extra virgin olive oil has very high oxidative stability. It's very chemically stable. If you go to the Mediterranean region of the world, I mean, they're cooking with it. They don't use any of these like highly marketed cooking oils that you see on TV, right? They're using extra virgin olive oil. It's got a ton of antioxidants in it. Polyphenol compounds that serve to protect the oil from that, these oxidative processes that are accelerated when exposed to heat. Most extra virgin olive oil is primarily monounsaturated fat, which is very chemically stable, and about 14 to 15% saturated fat, which is the most chemically stable. So it's fine. It's fine to cook with. It's actually a big myth.
Know a lot. You have really, from 2011, when you started really researching this, it's been over 10 years, but but you have immersed yourself into this. Really, at the starting point was when your mother was diagnosed with this dementia, and then thus began all the research. And it seems like every day you're like learning something. I mean, we all are.
Yeah.
But do your viewpoints sometimes change where you thought, oh, wow, I thought that, but now I'm starting to think different, like fasting, for instance.
Yeah.
You were thinking, oh, fasting really helps. It makes your body feel like it's starving itself and all those things they say. And now you don't agree with that.
Yeah. No, I'm completely obsessed with all things like nutrition, health. I mean, it's what I'm reading about all day, every day. And I'm constantly updating my knowledge base. And yeah, I mean, I not only have been able to, had the opportunity to write these books, which is just an incredible gift. But I actually got to write academic text. I got to contribute a textbook, a chapter in a textbook for clinicians on the clinical practice of dementia prevention. So this is something that I've been deeply immersed with for some time. And yeah, there are, I think it's really important I'm a citizen scientist essentially, but as a scientist of any sort to be able to, update your knowledge base and change when new data presents itself. And so the fasting thing I think is a great example of that. I've recently, air quality is something that's become increasingly important to me. Whereas like 3 years ago, I probably would have said that it's like not,
we're not in the best state for air quality.
We're not. Yeah. But yeah, there are many different areas. I used to not, for example, I used to be a lot more carb focused, like I used to be, what I think most people would describe as a low carb dieter. But, my diet these days, I'm integrating a lot more carbohydrates in my diet, which are again supportive of vigorous exercise, which I think is crucial to aging healthily. Where else have I changed my view? Yeah, there's been a number of areas where
I think we're always changing, and that's what it is. So if you said something 5 years ago, science and everything else comes about, and you start reading and you start learning that they've figured this out, and things change, the views change.
Yeah, and I think that's why my audience trusts me, and and when I'm wrong, I admit it. I haven't been wrong about too much. I've just sort of evolved my.
I've been wrong about a lot.
Yeah.
What is like one food that I need energy right now, and I don't want to fucking have a lot of caffeine? Well, they say a banana. You don't even need a whole banana. You take a half a banana. Do you like bananas?
I think bananas are good. Yeah, they're a good source of like potassium and carbs, but I'm not like, I think there is some merit to, if you're feeling like your energy is all over the place, I think, caffeine is an interesting one. I mean, the research on coffee coffee does seem to be a health tonic, in many ways. When you look at the observational evidence, people who drink more coffee seem to be protected to some degree against Alzheimer's disease, Parkinson's disease, MS, cardiovascular disease. But not everybody, just because we see, on average that people's health improves when they drink coffee, that doesn't mean that everybody's health improves when they drink coffee, right? Some people, coffee, essentially, you're not gaining energy by drinking coffee, you're just reducing fatigue. And you're essentially borrowing energy from later.
Right. You're going to crash.
Yeah. Yeah.
How many cups of coffee do you have a day?
I drink like 1 to 2, sometimes 3, but I try to curtail, I try to have all my, I try not to drink any caffeine after about noon.
Yeah. And sodas obviously are the worst thing in the world for you.
Sugar sweetened beverages are bad. Yeah.
Fructose in general. Sugars, you should try to, unless they're natural sugars, you should stay away from those.
Yeah. Everybody would be.
What if you have 1 Coke a day?
That's still a lot of sugar. It's like 35 grams.
What about an Angel Be root beer?
Yeah. I mean,
I got to stay away from it. That's one thing. I don't drink a lot, but I probably have like 5 cans a week.
If it's like it's a one time a week thing, I think that's okay,
but not like every day.
Every day, like a legitimate soda with like 35 grams of sugar, I would say that's. I mean, look, you could carve out a way to integrate that into your diet,
but why do that?
Right, because you're taking away more. You're basically it's supplanting calories that you could be consuming from more nutritious foods. Like I'd rather not ingest 35 calories of soda, which provides no nutritional benefit. It's probably going to negatively impact your energy that I, could otherwise get from whole fruit, which is really satiating and is going to like quell my hunger in a much more, significant way than soda, which if anything might actually increase hunger.
What about pizza?
I mean, pizza can be good, but it's like one of these. The thing about pizza is that it's one of these. In the research, it's called like a mixed dish. It's essentially just carbs and fat, which are basically just energy. It's not necessarily the carbs that are bad. It's not the fat that's bad, but it's like the combination of both. And particularly pizzas tends to be hyper palatable. So it's like something that like, it's just, people tend to overconsume these kinds of foods, whether we're talking pizza or lasagna or
everything in moderation.
Cookies. Yeah. They're just very calorie dense foods. And whereas, again, like 5 years ago, I would have been more about, we got to reduce our carbohydrate intake. Now, I think when we zoom out and we look at real public, the real public health problems plaguing modern society, 1 in 2 people by the year 2030 are going to be obese, not just overweight, but like obese.
Yeah.
The vast majority of people.
What's the definition of obese?
Well, obesity is measured via the BMI, which is not a super accurate diagnostic tool, but as a screening tool, it's fairly effective. The BMI is basically, it's just a formula that, will use your height and your weight to just come up with some
number
that doesn't differentiate between lean mass and fat mass. So if you're looking at somebody like The Rock, for example, like according to his BMI, he would be obese. Clearly, he's not obese. He's in fantastic shape, right? Somebody like even Mark Wahlberg, right? Like according to his BMI, like I don't know what his BMI is, but because he's carrying so much lean, healthy mass, he would probably be considered obese from that standpoint. But nobody uses the BMI as a diagnostic tool. It's more of a screening tool to look at like population health. And it's a really quick and dirty way to do that, but it's effective.
Yeah. You know what I think kind of sucks is like, yeah, you're beautiful and you're muscular and you're huge and you've got this great physique, but you got to do that for the rest of your life or it's going to become fat. You're going to be fat. You're going to get fat if you're all ripped up and muscular and you just all of a sudden say, I'm not going to work out anymore.
Well, it's not it's not that muscle turns to fat, but it's like when to maintain that degree of musculature, you've got to eat more, obviously. And if, when you're eating a lot and you're working out a lot, that, all that energy is going to accrue muscle, right?
Right.
When you stop working out, I mean, and you continue eating as much as you were to maintain that degree of musculature, then you're going to start putting on fat.
Right. What about, lastly, there's a couple things, but I want to get into more about this documentary and all this stuff in the book. But like,
I love it.
This is why it's therapy for me. People say take magnesium, zinc. Should I be taking magnesium and zinc in the morning, just a low dose?
Magnesium is great. About 50% of the population doesn't consume adequate magnesium. And magnesium is involved in hundreds of processes in the body that range from energy synthesis. So like you were saying, like, what can I eat for more energy? Well, magnesium is really important for the creation of ATP, which is the energetic currency of all cells. And most people underconsume magnesium. But magnesium is also really important as an anti-aging mineral. It's like a super important cofactor in enzymes that are actually called DNA repair enzymes. And DNA repair is it's one of the causes of aging, DNA damage.
Right.
Zinc, I don't think you necessarily need if you're eating red meat on a regular basis.
Right. It's got all that in there.
Yeah.
What about vitamin D in general?
A lot of people are deficient in vitamin D. Vitamin D is important. Vitamin D actually may be a risk factor for dementia. It's also involved in autoimmunity. I don't want to pretend like I know everything, but I do, is something.
You're very knowledgeable. And look, again, you said this in the beginning. These are your thoughts, your science, your research.
Yeah.
And this is what you believe.
Yeah.
And a lot of it sounds pretty gripping.
Well, and I think as long as you're making recommendations that are rooted in evidence, but at the end of the day, ultimately aren't going to do harm, then I think it's like providing people an on-ramp to self-experiment. Because at the end of the day, it's your own N of one experiment that's going to matter the most. Nutrition science is incredibly weak. And so anybody who's going by what the data says strictly, I think that's somewhat misguided. I think you have to be willing to experiment for yourself.
What about in terms of if you deal with a lot of achiness and pain? Are there nutrients or there foods that you'd recommend to add to your diet to sort of reduce inflammation, reduce pain levels, arthritis, anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, I have chronic low back issues. So.
Well, I've had 9 surgeries on my neck and back.
Damn,
so
9.
I'm always, I'm in chronic pain all the time. So I'm like, how do I just make my body feel a little more relaxed or, reduce the pain?
I think eating a diet that's primarily whole foods, like an anti-inflammatory diet, stacking the odds in your favor in other ways, exercising in a way that's best suited for your body. I think that's really important. And cutting out these ultra processed foods, pro-inflammatory, food additives and the like. I think that's really important. Is diet going to be a cure for, your back issues? Hasn't been for mine, but I can't even imagine how much worse my back pain would be were I, a consumer of the standard American diet.
Right.
For example,
Now this documentary, it's in theaters.
Yeah. So we're doing a limited theatrical run in the United States. And then on June 27th, we're releasing the documentary to the world on online, littleemptyboxes.com.
Really?
Yeah.
Littleemptyboxes.com. That's where you'll be able to watch it.
Yeah.
So you're doing it on your own platform.
On my own platform. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we're doing it really fully independently. This is my first time making a documentary, and I wasn't going to wait to see if we were going to get, picked up or funded or whatever by these streaming platforms. It's something that I felt needed to be made. And so me and my team, just decided to do it. And so we were able to secure national theatrical distribution through Abramarama. And, but obviously, I want people around the world to be able to see this film. I mean, dementia is a pressing global problem now.
Yeah.
And so, we're going to put it online for anybody.
It really is. Dementia and Alzheimer's. It's so frustrating. It's like sometimes you look at, we've been dealing with the same issues for so long. And it's like, when are they going to come up with something? When are they going to stop this? It's such a, and your mother was so young. She was diagnosed when she was 58.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's 7 years older than I am. That's not very,
No.
And it's just scary that, I've heard stories of 40-year-olds, with Alzheimer's or dementia. And I think this documentary is so important, and it's also beautiful. I really want everybody to watch it because, it's something that so many people are experiencing, and seeing it through not only your eyes, but your mother's eyes, and seeing how it affects everything and every part of you, and trying to come up with solutions to, fix this problem. It's just such a, I really commend you. I watched it in the middle of the day, and you're like, hey, I'm going to send you this documentary. I'm like, I got to watch a documentary now. Anytime I have to do any work, I'm like, fuck. And I did not stop watching it. I was so captivated. And, even the imagery of where she would take you when you were younger, when you were a baby, certain locations. And I could see how it affected you. I could see just how important she was to you. And people have so many important people in their lives who are going through these things. And, you know, we have to let them know they're not alone and that we're all part of this. And also to see how it affects the people around you and how important it is to find a cure.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the first, I mean, first of all, I've been working on this film for a decade now. So, I mean, that's just like,
it's incredible.
I could have gone to medical school, but I decided to, you know, to be steadfast in getting this, you know, this direly important information out there, because today about 6 million people in the US have Alzheimer's disease. Obviously that affects a staggering, you know, number of people on the periphery, right? The caregivers, the family members. Parkinson's disease, just over 1 million people in the US have that. It's the fastest growing brain disease. And the documentary really, it's a love letter to, I mean, not just love itself and family and how important that is, but to the science of dementia prevention, which I feel like now for the first time, you know, we certainly don't know everything, but we do have a semblance of a roadmap in terms of how we might live to reduce our risk. And this is the first documentary to capture that, you know, that science and provide an array of ideas. The film doesn't provide easy answers. It doesn't present a magical diet or one size fits all solution to this problem, because that doesn't exist. It would be inauthentic to suggest otherwise. But we do present, I think, some really important ideas about, you know, where we've gone wrong with regard to our diets and our lifestyles that might light a candle for some people that are unaware of.
And you talk to doctors in it. We see a lot of these experts in the field talking about it. And so you're getting so many different approaches to it, like your personal story, your mom, your family, and also the nutrients and exercise and all these things, all these aspects. And I think it's just really important. You also gave me this. I know. What are peptides? What are collagen peptides, and how important are they for us?
Yeah, collagen is great. So I brought that for you. It's from a company that sponsors my podcast. So it's Bubs Naturals. And I just, you know, had some around the house, and I'm a fan.
I've never tried it.
Oh, really?
I've never tried. I don't even know what peptides are.
Oh, well, collagen's great for skin.
I know what collagen is.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Yeah, it's
I'm not the most knowledgeable,
but you know about collagen. Yeah, it's not a protein that we typically consume too much of today as a part of the Western diet. We tend to consume mostly, like when we eat meat, like steak is skeletal muscle. It doesn't tend to contain a lot of collagen because we tend not to like the texture of collagenous tissues. You know, if you're making a whole rotisserie chicken, for example, or you're slow cooking some of these more tough cuts of meat that are closer to the joint of an animal, then you end up consuming collagenous amino acids and the like. But in general, we tend to underconsume the amino acids that are found in collagen. And studies are now starting to show that it's beneficial from the standpoint of wound healing, of skin health and appearance.
Could it help with pain or joints?
It might. Yeah, it actually might. There is data on that.
And how much would I take out of that? Like a scoop?
10 to 20 grams.
And you put it with water?
Yeah.
And you just mix it up?
Yeah, you can put it in coffee. You can mix it in water.
Is it tasteless?
Tasteless. Totally tasteless. Yeah. And I think it's great from a health longevity standpoint. I give it to my cat.
Really?
Yeah. My cat's like 8 years old. I want her to be around forever.
I know. And, isn't that a shame that our animals die so young, so quickly?
I don't even want to think about it.
It's the worst. Yeah. It is the absolute worst.
But no, I think collagen is great. It's rich in an amino acid in particular called glycine, which we tend to underconsume, is really important for metabolic health. So there are studies that show that glycine supplementation before bed, about 3 grams of glycine, can actually improve sleep quality.
I can take this before bed?
You can take it before bed, yeah.
Wow.
Improve sleep quality, insulin sensitivity, general metabolic health, possibly even longevity. Glycine is rate limiting in the synthesis of the production of glutathione, which is the body's most important master antioxidant. So I think it's a very underrated supplement. It's not a replacement for whole protein. So for example, the protein found in, whey protein or beef, eggs, fish, things like that.
Right.
But I think as a supplement, as an addition to one's diet, I think it's great.
And you've done 300 episodes of your health science podcast, The Genius Life.
Yeah.
You love it, don't you?
I love it. It's my pride and joy. Yeah.
Do you constantly talking to experts in different fields, right?
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, we have like incredible, we've had Pulitzer Prize winning journalists on, amazing experts. We also have people that are like more fun and interesting and have more out there ideas. I think that's,
It's part of it.
it's part,
Got to think outside the box sometimes.
you do, particularly with a condition like, like dementia or any
Yeah,
of
if
these
they're
other.
not finding a cure, let's see what else works.
Exactly.
There's got to be something on this earth that will help,
Yeah,
beat this.
exactly. Like I've taken flack, for having certain guests on the show that are thought to be more fringe in terms of their in terms of their viewpoints, but I think it's it's par for the course of being an investigator and wanting to just talk to anybody who might have
Absolutely.
any type of insight. Like I love it, and I do my best to push back when I don't agree with something, but and it's not just about. It's not one of these like dry, boring health shows. It's super
No,
clinical.
it seems like a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And it seems like I feel like you're one of us. You're just like you're getting, like I am with you right now,
Yeah.
getting all this information. You're asking them all these questions to further your knowledge
Exactly.
so it's great. And they this podcast, by the way, your Instagram is at Max
Lugavere.
Lugavere.
Yeah.
Lugavere. I said Lugavere.
Yeah.
Max Lugavere. Lugaver. E.
Yes.
And add an E at the end. Or it would be Lugavere.
Right. Exactly.
I could talk to you forever. Will you come back sometime?
Dude, I'd love to.
This is just like, I feel like I'm going to be more healthy because of you, just by having this conversation. And, it's nice to, because people say, oh, don't eat too much red meat or don't eat this. And it's like, your approach is sort of a more fun approach and a realistic and also moderation. And I think it's great. I think, I'm going to try the peptides, the collagen peptides. I'm going to try that. How many times a day you take that?
Take it once or twice a day. Yeah. 10 to 20 grams a day. If you miss a day, it's no big deal. But yeah, I'm a fan.
Take my magnesium.
Yeah.
Have eggs, have meat, salads.
Yeah.
Salads are good.
Salads are great. Dark leafy greens, one of the most nutrient dense foods.
Dark leafy greens. But when you go to the grocery store, that doesn't say dark leafy greens. What, you just get greens? What do you, anything dark?
Yeah. Whatever people, some people have a visceral
spinach
repulsion to
kale.
Yeah. Whatever you like. It really doesn't matter. Romaine lettuce, arugula, all great. They all have distinct and also overlapping benefits. But research out of Rush University shows that people who eat a bowl and a half of dark leafy greens every day have brains that perform up to 11 years younger. So I like to just eat a salad a day. It doesn't have to be massive, but like it's not a bowl and a half. It's about a serving, a cup and a third of dark leafy greens every day.
Are black olives good for you?
They're great.
I love black olives. What about green olives?
They're great. They all start out as green, or I think like purple, and then they go green and then black. I could be wrong. Don't quote me on that.
What about legumes?
Legumes are great. Good source of fiber.
Legumes,
yeah.
Legumes?
I think so.
The blue legumes?
Who doesn't like lentils?
Right, but like, are all nuts really good for you? Peanuts?
People have different, some people don't tolerate, obviously people have nut allergies and things like that.
I feel like I get a little bit congested when I have nuts. Is
Yeah.
that possible?
It is possible. It's possible.
I'm not allergic, but I feel like, I love nuts.
Yeah. You don't
I don't want to say that out loud again. I don't want to do it.
I mean, not in West Hollywood.
Yeah.
But
or anywhere.
But no, I think nuts are great. Yeah, I mean, look, the evidence is in favor of nuts. Does that mean that everybody needs to eat more nuts? That's a totally individual choice. I don't eat that many, but nuts certainly have benefits. I try to eat like 3, for example, Brazil nuts every day. Brazil nuts are the top source of selenium, which is really good for detoxification, thyroid function,
really,
brain health, lipids in the body, so like cholesterol. There's one study that found that just eating 3 Brazil nuts led to an acute drop in like LDL cholesterol, I want to say, which is because selenium is really important for thyroid function. It's really important.
Brazil
nuts,
it's called.
Yeah.
By the way, is there anything
unsung hero of the nut world?
Yeah. Is there anything, any food or anything, lastly, that guys can do for just an erection? You would know.
Yeah, watermelon rind.
What is watermelon rind?
Throw it in a blender. I don't know. It's just it's a top source of L-citrulline, which boosts nitric oxide, which is really important for healthy erections.
For boners.
Yeah. But interestingly, Viagra, there's studies that show that there's one study that shows that that found that taking Viagra as a pre-workout actually boosted muscle protein synthesis on par with about 1 to 200 milligrams of testosterone.
Would that be Viagra? When you say Viagra, it could be Cialis or Viagra or whatever.
Yeah.
It's all the same.
Yeah. And by the way, a lot of people are doing this.
So you could take Cialis and it's fine.
You could take Cialis pre-workout. Yeah, because it doesn't create sexual arousal. It just sends the blood.
Right. You don't want to have weightlifting all of a sudden. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. and by the way, there's interesting evidence that shows that suggests that people who regularly take these drugs have a reduced risk for Alzheimer's disease. So there might be something to the fact that these drugs, they boost blood flow, possibly to the brain. So they're not just, and they were actually originally, these drugs were actually the class of drugs under which, Viagra, Cialis falls they were originally discovered as or being studied as a blood pressure management medication. But now we're seeing that they might have all these benefits with regard to like promoting muscle growth and reducing, the risk for Alzheimer's disease and the like. So I'm not suggesting that people run out and go and do this, but, people like at the gym, I know are definitely taking this stuff like pre-workout.
Wow.
Yeah.
Alcohol with Alzheimer's, alcohol with dementia, probably not a great thing.
Yeah, it's not a great thing. The dose makes the poison, but if you can not drink, that's ideal. But if you do choose to imbibe every now and then, I think you just want to make sure that it's not impacting your sleep negatively. So sober up before you go to bed and just make sure that you're hydrating.
How many hours a night do you sleep?
I mean, it varies person to person.
7, 8?
Yeah, 7 to, I get 9 sometimes, 7 to 9. Younger people require more typically.
Right.
More hours than older adults, but yeah, 7 to 9 generally is.
What about a nap middle of the day?
I'm not a fan of naps, so you're asking the wrong person.
You don't nap? Why is that?
I just feel like crap after I'm not.
It gives me another boost.
Does it?
Yeah, if I actually take a little nap, you're with him.
I'm not able to go to sleep. Like I close my eyes, hoping, praying for a bit of at least one cycle.
It's just
of sleep.
resting. It's resting your body.
That's fine. Yeah, I do that sometimes, but it's I don't really. It's not rejuvenative for me. Like I wake up and I just, end up feeling frustrated that I wasn't able to get any additional sleep.
What's your other, besides your documentary, Little Empty Boxes, which again, on the website, what is it? Little Empty Box?
LittleEmptyBoxes.com.
LittleEmptyBoxes.com, and it will be available June
27th.
June 27th. You guys check this out. What other documentaries on diet or whatever would you also recommend that you like? Maybe one.
God.
What's the top 2 or 3?
I mean, there are none really, because I think most documentaries, particularly on, and no shade against Netflix. I mean, I'm a paying Netflix subscriber, but most are not good. Most I find to have some sort of bias. Typically a plant-based bias. Like we all ought to go vegan. By the end, you're always being, they always tend to pile on like this like propaganda, for other causes outside of human health, which I think is inappropriate, when somebody sets out to watch a nutrition documentary. So there aren't many that I like. And that's part of the reason why I set out to, create one of my own. But, yeah, I guess the last good documentary
wasn't on diet.
It wasn't really on diet. The last documentary that I saw that I really liked, I think, was like Jonah Hill's documentary with his therapist.
Yeah, that was pretty good.
It was pretty good.
I liked it.
He had Parkinson's disease, which, I can relate to because of what my mom.
Who had?
The therapist. Jonah Hill's therapist had Parkinson's disease.
Oh, I didn't remember that.
Yeah, and he talks about how.
Oh, was that at the end?
I think so.
Talking about that?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a while, but I remember I liked it. I remember it was touching, and it was cool. It was brave.
Yeah, there aren't that many. Off the top of my head, All
right, good.
Yeah.
I don't have to educate myself anymore.
I
educated myself here. And Genius Foods, your book.
Yeah, pick up Genius Foods if you want. I've also written a cookbook called Genius Kitchen, which is out. And then my podcast, The Genius Life.
You're writing books about nutrition and health. And I have a book coming out in October. You can pre-order it now. It's called The Talented Farter. It's on pre-order. It sounds and it's hilarious, and it's for kids and adults, and you can pre-order that now.
Amazing.
It is. It's really amazing. No, the illustrations, the story, it's such a cool, cute. It's great. I'm really proud of it.
Dude, that's awesome.
Yeah. Well,
Mazel tov.
congratulations. It's a joy meeting you. Don't give me your cell phone number, because I'm going to sometimes text you and say, "Could I eat this? Could I do that?"
Dude, I'm down.
We should totally hang.
We should totally hang. We're essentially neighbors.
We're neighbors.
Yeah.
I love this. This has been so educational. I love the documentary. I can't wait for you to see it, and the book, and all the stuff you got going on. You got books. You got the podcast at Max Lugavere on the Instagram. So thanks for being here.
Thank you, Michael.
By the way, this was the longest podcast I've had to date, probably.
Seriously?
Thank you, Max, for being on the podcast. That was really insightful. And now the inside of you with Michael Rosenbaum light is on.
I turned it on for the outro.
Yeah, thanks, Ryan.
Well, no, we got it both ways.
We got options.
No, we have it both ways.
We have it both ways. Thank you for listening today and being part of our what would you say, our community.
Mm-hmm.
And also, please join Patreon, Patreon, patreon.com/inside of you, and join Patreon today. It's a wonderful community. There's a lot of perks, and you're supporting the show, which we need all the help we can get. Without our patrons, we couldn't be here. All right. Well, another fine day, another fun day interviewing people, and
that was really a learning experience, that one.
It was. And I watched the documentary, and I definitely cried at times. But I thought, this guy sort of stopped his life to take care of his mother and try and find a way to cure her. And it shows you that you have to be hopeful, and you have to know that there's a light at the end of the tunnel, no matter what, or what's the purpose. You have to know that, people are constantly trying to find cures for these ailments, these diseases. And if you just stop saying, "Oh, there's no hope, forget it," then I think that if you look at through time, that's what's happened. They've found cures later on and throughout years and years of scientific research and whatnot. Things happen, and one day there will be a cure for Alzheimer's and all these other horrible things. And so thanks, Max. Right now, we're going to go to the top tier. We're going to give shout outs to the top tier patrons. Thank you again for joining. And here we go. Couldn't do without you. Nancy D, Leah and Kristen, Little Lisa, Yukiko, Jill E, Brian H, Nico P, Robert B, Jason W, Sophie M, Raj C, Jennifer N, Stacy L, Jamal F, Janelle B, Mike E.
Eldon Supremo, 99 more, Santiago M, the L, Maddie S, Belinda N, Dave H,
Dave Hole. Hello, Dave.
Brad D, Ray H, Tabitha T, Tom N, Talia M, Betsy D.
Yes, indeed. Don't forget Rhiannon C, Corey K, Devnex, and Michelle A, Jeremy C, Mr. M, Eugene, and Leah. The Salty Ham. The Salty Ham.
The Sally Ham is someone's Instagram handle.
The Sally Ham. Mel S, Chris, Eric H.
Oracle, Amanda R, William K, Kevin E, Jor L, Jamin J, Leanne J, Luna R, Mike F, Brian L, Jules M, Jessica B, Kyle F, Kaylee J, Charlene A, Todd D. Oh, Todd T.
Todd T.
I went till I messed up.
And hi, Kyle F. Haven't seen you in a while. Marion Louise L, Romeo the Band, Frank B, Jen T, April RM, Randy S, Rachel D, Jen, Carolina Girl, Nick W, Stephanie and Evan, Stefan, as I say, Charlene A, Don G, Jenny B, 76, John, Jennifer R, Tina E, NG Tracy, Keith B, Heather and Sweet Greg, or Sweet Heather and Greg, Ellie K, Elizabeth L, Ben B, Jammin, Pierre C, Susie, is that Susie O?
Q,
Susie Q. Susie Q. Hi,
Yeah.
Susie Q. Sultan, Ingrid C, and Brandon C. Without you guys, we wouldn't be here. Thank you to all of you, and thank you for your continued support. And from the Hollywood Hills in Hollywood, California, I am Michael Rosenbaum.
I'm right, Tez.
That's right, Tez. A little wave to the camera. Thank you for continuing to join us every week. We'll see you next week. We'll have another great interview for you. Can't wait. And that's it. Be good to yourself. We'll see you next week.